Good morning everybody and welcome back to the garage. We are doing something exciting today, but before we do that, let's just enjoy a little brief moment of Kieran riding the Town Mate. This is Kieran's first ever ride on the Town Mate, and it looks like it's going well. And Artis here also. Well, that's enough of that then. So what are we doing today? Well, we are going to fit some heated grips to the little Suzuki Address 110. I've been riding this over winter and it's been quite cold without them, so now the weather's getting warmer, seems like the least appropriate time to do that, but that's what we're doing anyway. And obviously this fella right here is here.
Hello.
He's going to give me a hand, so let's get right to it. This is what we're fitting today then. They are the Oxford Hot Grips Light, and they are designed for smaller capacity scooters and motorcycles.
I'm assuming the light option is only half the fat of your regular hot grips.
Yeah, I am watching my waistline, so these are the light version. These were 20 quid. I got these second hand off eBay, but the box has never been opened, so they are simultaneously brand new and second hand, so that's what we're going to be fitting. In other Suzuki Address news, I have removed the exhaust and painted it in high temperature black paint because it was starting to look a little bit rusty, so that's going to be going back on in a little while. And while we're at it, in other garage related news, I am also missing the rear wheel off the GT750 because that's been painted and will be going back on shortly. We're just sitting on the bike and having a look at where we might mount the switch, which is this sort of flicky round switch just here. And we're thinking, we're going to have a look what's behind here, but we're thinking either here, so that's handy for the controls just there. But if that doesn't work, then possibly down here somewhere, which will be less accessible while you're riding, but generally that won't be too much of a problem. But we're going to have a look behind there. That's my preference at the moment. We'll see if there's space for the wires and stuff. To see what's behind here, we are going to have to take some of these plastics off. So we're going to take the wing mirrors off either side, and then there are 1, 2, I think there was 1 under there and 1 under there, 4 screws, and then the whole front end there just lifts off. And not to forget, there's also this one just here.
We've finally wrestled with the fascia jobber, which has given us a bit of an insight into the space that we need to get to, which does seem to be plenty of space. As John suggested, that may be where they have the factory fitted option installed, so we'll follow suit and see if we can cram some electrics in.
Before we start drilling the hole for the switch thing there, I just want to remove this front panel just here and have a look at the back of the ignition switch, because although it's possible to wire these straight into the battery, which is really easy to do, what I would like to try is wiring them to the ignition so that when the bike's on they will work, but then when the bike's off they'll just automatically turn off, so that I don't forget to turn them off and flatten the battery. So that's what we're going to have a look at next. To remove that front panel, there's just a screw there and a screw there, and then it pulls from the other side, so we'll do that now. We got those screws out then, so it's just a case of sticking your hand up in there. There's a little latchy, lippy thing you can get a hold of, and just pulling it out towards you. We're just looking in where the battery is then to try and find out where we can wire this thing up to. The back of the ignition switch has got this little black rubber jobby on it, so if we just pull that off, and you can see the wires are in there. And we've used the multimeter and determined that the red one is a source of constant power, so we're not going to use that one. There's a brown one just to the left of it and an orange one just underneath it, and either of those is a switched ignition, so when we turn the ignition on they get power. So we're going to have a look further down the line, but one of those is going to be our wire. To get to the wires that we need to get to, we're going to have to remove the battery, so that is there and there. That's for the bracing thing that holds it in place.
One at the back.
Oh, is the one at the back as well? Okay. And obviously the wires that are connected to it. So we're going to take those off now. Battery's out the way then, and we've fished out the green connector that's attached to the back of the ignition. That is all one piece there. And we've just removed the orange wire from the green connector with some little key things.
Oh, yep, the key things there. Pick your choice.
So they just help to remove the pins from the connector block. And we're going to attempt to join our wires into this orange one here. Kieran's just using a little nail to try and open up the brass little crimped connector thing there. We're going to try and splice in right at the connector itself. And it's going reasonably well so far. Obviously, if you don't want to fanny about wiring this into your ignition, it would be a much simpler job to just wire this direct to your battery, and that's what the kit's designed to do. It's only us being pernickety that means that we're going about this the hard way. So if you don't feel like you're inclined to start messing about with all this, just stick it straight on your battery and have done. So here's the plan. We have opened up this little brass connector here and stripped the wiring back a little bit. I have a length of additional wiring, and I'm going to attempt to both solder and crimp that on there, and then on this end I'm going to put a little insulated connector, which means that we connect to the heated grips to the end of that. And I'm doing that so that if at a later point we need to remove the grips or anything, we don't have to start taking all this plug apart and everything again. So at the moment we're going to solder and crimp this. Right, we've got that soldered and as crimped as it can be in there. So now we're just going to see if it'll fit back in this green connector. Here we go then, we've got the thing back in the green connector, and obviously coming up this side I've just put a little insulated connector on there. So that's now going to be the feed, that's a switched ignition feed for our heated grips. So that's the unnecessarily complicated bit out of the way. Now we're just back on to fitting the grips as they ordinarily would be. Kieran's just attempting to reconnect the green block connector, and it's a little bit of a pain. And it is at this point I am reminded that we have been complimented, or it has been mentioned, that we never swear on our channel, and that is a deliberate choice. We have made the choice not to swear on the channel, but rest assured, good people of YouTube, that all the swearing happens when we are not filming.
Yeah. There's quite often words that I've never heard anyone say in anger that John absolutely owns in violent times, because contrary to a lot of what you see, he's not a patient man.
Yeah. I think I present quite a good image on camera, but I am actually not the most patient person in the world. And I do find, and have always found, that swearing helps get a job done. So we will continue to not swear on the channel, but be assured it is happening behind the scenes. Right. The green connector is back on. The battery is back on, with all the associated wiring for my various other gubbins. So we are more or less sort of back where we started. The only difference now is that we have this red wire, which is the switched ignition. And let me tell you, good people, that has been a proper, I nearly swore, pain in the bum job.
Nuisance.
Like, that has been phenomenally more complicated than it needed to be, for various reasons. So if you want to do this quickly, do not bother with the switched ignition, just stick it on your battery. If you really want the switched ignition, then hopefully you've got more patience than I have. But right, let's move on. Okay, moving on. Apologies for my little outburst there. Just a little bit annoyed at the scooter, but we are cracking on with this job. So next thing we're going to do is try to remove the original grips. We're going to have to take the bar end jobbies off, same on this side, and we're going to dry fit Kieran's little black jobby there and see what's what. Next stage of this job that is fighting us all the way is removing the grips. So what I've just had to do is get a little screwdriver, and I've sort of wedged that up under there, and I've had to break the seal. There's a lot of glue on there, and then I've had to do that in various places all the way around, until eventually it has broken enough of the glue for me to slide that off. So we're now going to attempt that on the other side, which is probably going to be a little bit harder because obviously that's the throttle side of proceedings.
The barrel.
But we'll see what happens. So that's the technique in action. As you can see, Kieran's got the screwdriver and he's working it around the edge of the grip, breaking the glue. So hopefully we can slide that existing grip off without having to cut it or damage it. So that was my side over here, and I've just used a scouring paddy type thing to just get rid of some of the glue and get that back so that it's nice and smooth. Kieran's managed to get this side off, so we're just going to clean that up and then dry fit the new ones.
Just be wary, obviously, on this side there's a bit of a lip and stuff that you have to try and unfold it from on here rather than trying to kind of just pull it off and whatnot, so keep that in mind.
We're just dry fitting the grips, and this side over here fits quite nicely. That'll just slide straight on, that's no problem. Over here there is a little lip and it's preventing the grip from going on, so we're just using a file to file that off, and then we will attempt to dry fit that grip. Right, we're happy that the grips are going to fit. We are going to try and glue those on now. We have just tested the grips are actually working just by holding the terminals onto the battery, just to make sure that they are working before we start drilling, because we've got a hole to drill here for the switch. Well, there's my pilot hole, and there's a 20mm hole. I say 20mm, it's actually slightly oval because Oxford have provided a drill bit that's not actually straight, so that's slightly ovaled it out, but it should be okay. So it's a case now of feeding the wires for the switch through the hole from this side, so that the last thing to go into that hole is the switch itself. And here you can see Kieran demonstrating just that. Lots of wires. Many wires. Moving up this wiring loom, we have got the LED which would indicate that the grips are on, but as we are wiring this straight to the ignition, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to push it through out of the way, because the grips won't be able to be on when the bike is off, so I don't really need that. Here we go then, all the wires are through. Last thing to get pushed into the hole is the switch, which should sort of clip into position. It would clip a little bit more nicely if the hole wasn't oval, but hey ho. So we've got the switch in. Unfortunately it doesn't really clip in, it will just sort of pull back out again, because as I just mentioned, the drill bit that was provided in the kit is not actually straight, and it has ovaled the hole. So before you drill a hole in your beloved scooter, people, please check that your drill bit is straight. And thank you very much, Oxford, for providing that. That's really unhelpful. Thanks, cool, good job. Moving on then. This is going to drive you continuity people mad. Any questions? No, moving on. We have just been having a look in here and tidying up some of the cables. We've just got a couple of like zip ties, just routing these where they need to be. So we're going to put this front piece back on with the screws that it attaches with, and we'll see what happens next. Right, well, we're getting on a bit now, and we've got everything sorted back together. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to tip the bike onto its rear wheel so that the handlebars can move freely, and then just attempt to move those left to right. And what we're checking for is that the wires that we've put in or moved of the existing wires, that nothing's getting in the way and stopping the steering from moving left to right. So that's all we're doing now. And it feels fine, so moving on. We are on the home straight. We have got mostly everything back in place. The only thing left to do is deal with this massive long wire, which is going to go into our switched ignition feed, and we've obviously got to glue the grips on. And I waited to do that until we got the plastics on, so I could tell how far I wanted that to be towards the plastics. if I'd have done it before, it might have been that I couldn't get that plastic in at all. So plastics first, now glue. Right, so the plan is we're going to change the positive terminal that arrived with the kit over to the bullet type that will fit in our switched ignition, and then we're going to wire that up and get everything settled in place where it needs to be. And then we're going to start the bike and put the grips on, and we're going to let the grips heat up, which should make them expand a little bit, so that when we put the glue on the handlebar we can push the grip on without having to really give it some welly. That's the theory anyway. We shall see if it works. And first step, terminal. So that's the terminal changed over, you can see, for the bullet type, and we're going to keep the original ring connector for the earth and wire that just straight to the battery or possibly another earth point. There is obviously a lot of cable here. It's designed for different types of motorbikes, so you've got quite a lot of cable. I did debate chopping that down because I don't need all of that, but I think what I'll do is I'll just, you know, coil it and keep it for now, because nearer to this end there is a little fuse, inline fuse there, and I want to keep that. And to be honest, I can't really be bothered cutting it off and soldering it up further on. So for now, just going to coil it, and there's plenty of space in the front of the scooter for some bits of wire, so we're going to do that now. So the bike's warmed up and the grips are warmed up, so we're going to cut the engine and we're going to get the super glue and we're going to glue the grips on.
Sticky business!
We have just glued that side there, and we've just come to have a look at the other side here and realised that this little lip thing here, which was keeping the factory grip on, is just going to get in the way of the new grip and stop it going on as far as it needs to. So we're going to have a go at removing this, either with a file or a hammer or a chainsaw, or just chewing it. We're not entirely sure yet, but we are attempting to remove that little raised section there. Here we go then. Kieran has just finished filing off the little nubbins.
Very delicate chisel work with this hefty bleeder.
Yeah, Kieran does all the delicate work around here, and if anything he's hitting hard with a hammer. I'm the guy for the job. So we've got all that sorted. We're just going to glue and stick the grip on, with the right hand side grip now on and the left hand side grip now on. The wing mirrors are on. So what we're doing at the moment, if Kieran would kindly demonstrate, we're just checking that we've got nice free movement on the throttle and that it snaps back and nothing gets in the way of any of the braking or anything like that. So we're just making sure that we're all happy with it before we take it out and test it. Right, well that's the end of that video. Hopefully it was helpful, and if it wasn't, then I apologise profusely. Just like to take the opportunity to thank this fella over here, and also to thank the few of you that have decided to support our channel. If we've had a few people buy us a brew, 1 or 2 stickers have been sold, and the odd donation, and you have reaffirmed our faith in humanity, so thanks very much for that. If you like this video, remember you can like it, you can comment on it, and you can subscribe for more crazy motoring madness. So that's it. We shall see you next time. Goodbye.